Wells showed us a future where machines fight our battles, where the skies fill with silent weapons that no longer need human hands. A world where the battlefield becomes automated, cold, unpredictable. And if that prediction felt unsettling, the next one is even stranger. Because while Wells imagined destruction, the next visionary imagined something entirely different. Not a weapon, not a vehicle, but a network. A network that would quietly shape the entire structure of modern life. If Wells saw machines taking over the skies, the next writer saw something far more ambitious. Machines taking over communication itself, not to control it, but to connect it. He imagined a system that would transcend borders, erasing distance, compressing time, and allowing people thousands of miles apart to speak, share, and experience life together as if they were in the same room. And remember, he imagined this long before computers, long before satellites, long before anyone had the vocabulary to describe what this network would eventually become. In 1909, the idea was absurd, laughable, impossible. And yet, that impossible idea became the invisible architecture of the modern world. But here's the part that truly sends a shiver down your spine. He didn't just predict the technology, he predicted us, how we would behave, how we would withdraw, how we would rely on this system not just for communication, but for comfort, identity, and purpose. He described a society connected by machines, yet strangely isolated. A world where real-life interaction becomes rare, and digital interaction becomes everything. Reading his words today feels less like reading fiction and more like reading a blueprint for the world we now live in. So the question is, how did a man in 1909 foresee something that would take nearly a century to build? And more importantly, what was he trying to warn us about? Let's dive into the mind of E.M. Forster and into a story that predicted the internet long before the world was ready to believe it. Long before the world spoke of Wi-Fi, long before routers blinked in our living rooms, long before a global pandemic forced billions indoors, E.M. Forster wrote a story in 1909 that reads, "Today, like prophecy, a story about isolation, a story about screens, a story about a world connected by a vast, omnipresent network that people relied on for communication, for education, for entertainment, for everything. A world where human contact becomes rare, physical presence becomes unnecessary, and face-to-face connection slowly fades into myth." He called this system the machine, and in his story, the machine stops. It ruled life in ways no one in 1909 could have imagined. At a time when telephones crackled with static, when electricity was still new, when long-distance communication meant waiting days for a letter, Forster described people sitting alone in small, identical rooms. Rooms filled with buttons, screens, and instant communication channels that allowed them to speak face-to-face without ever leaving the comfort of their isolation. Sound familiar? Forster basically described video calls, a century before Zoom, before FaceTime, before webcams. But what makes this prediction truly haunting is not the technology itself. It's how people behave inside it. In his story, humans willingly retreat into these rooms, believing it's safer, simpler, cleaner to interact through screens instead of reality. They share ideas, give lectures, attend meetings, even form relationships, all through a global network that Forster imagined as all-powerful, all-knowing, and constantly connected. And here's where the story gets chilling. Forster didn't predict this world as progress. He predicted it as a warning. He described people who rarely experience the outside world, people who fear physical contact, people who panic at the thought of leaving their rooms, people who treat isolation as the natural condition of life, decades before social media, decades before internet addiction, decades before quarantines forced billions indoors. Forster described a society where the physical world becomes irrelevant. He wrote of a civilization that worships comfort, that wants everything instantly: information, entertainment, companionship, without effort, without travel, without risk. And the machine, the vast global network, provides it, it becomes not just a tool, but a god. People trust it completely, depend on it fully. They stop questioning how it works, or who controls it, or what happens if it ever fails. And if that last sentence sent a chill down your spine, good. That was Forster's intention, because he didn't just imagine the conveniences of a connected world. He imagined the consequences. He predicted that when a society becomes fully dependent on a system, the system becomes fragile. Any disruption, any failure, any glitch has the power to bring life to a standstill. Can you feel the echo? Pandemic lockdowns, internet outages, global systems pushed to their limits, lives paused because networks failed. Forster foresaw not just the technology, but the vulnerability. But there's another layer to his vision, one that is even more unsettling. In Forster's world, people don't realize how much they've lost. They believe they're more connected than ever, yet they live alone. They believe they're more informed than ever, yet they rarely question anything. They believe they're more social than ever, yet they barely touch, barely meet, barely feel. A world hyper-connected, but emotionally starved. A world with millions of connections and almost no connection at all. And that idea, that eerie psychological side effect of technology, might be Forster's most accurate prediction of all. Let's step deeper into his vision. Forster imagined educators giving lectures through screens, speaking to unseen audiences scattered across the world. He predicted remote learning long before online classes became the norm. He predicted instant messaging, where ideas are sent and received at the push of a button. He predicted that people would collect likes and shares in the form of approved ideas and approved expressions distributed across the machine. He predicted content creation, virtual conferences, public video debates, and the global spread of culture through screens. But he also predicted something darker: information overload. In his world, people are bombarded with constant communication, endless messages, endless lectures, endless content, so much noise that the meaning behind the words begins to erode. Forster understood something modern psychologists now warn about. When everything is available instantly, nothing feels valuable. And just when the reader begins to see the world as comfortable, safe even, Forster twists the knife. He reveals that no one truly understands the machine. Not the people who use it, not the authorities who manage it, not even the technicians who maintain it. It is a system too vast, too interconnected, too essential for any one person to control. It becomes a dependency that no one dares question. And Forster asks the haunting question that still echoes today. What happens when a society builds its entire identity on a system it cannot live without and cannot repair? His warning wasn't about technology. It was about complacency, about losing the ability to live without the machine, about forgetting what the world looks like beyond a screen. He warned that when convenience becomes worship, humanity forgets how to be human. Does any of this sound familiar? The remote meetings, the virtual classrooms, the endless feeds of content, the dependency on technology for connection, purpose, and identity. The eerie parallels to lockdown life, to the rise of Zoom, to digital burnout, to the strange loneliness in a world overflowing with connection. Forster described all of it, more than 100 years ago. But here's the detail that truly breaks the pattern. Forster wasn't trying to predict the future. He was trying to warn us about it. He saw that technology, when used to replace life instead of enhance it, becomes a cage disguised as comfort. And once you realize how accurate he was, you're left with a question we've now asked in every story so far. If he saw this coming so clearly, so specifically, so impossibly early, what else lies in the predictions we've ignored? Because our next writer didn't just foresee technology. He foresaw society itself, its flaws, its chaos, its laws, its collapse, its reinvention, with an accuracy that borders on the supernatural. And the world he predicted looks dangerously close to the world we stepped into in the 2010s. Let's move forward toward one of the most frighteningly accurate predictions ever written.